Happy Thursday, January the 13th to you. Today you're going to be reading through the passages in Genesis chapter 24 and 25. You'll also be reading in Psalm 4 and Mark chapter 9. I want to talk a little bit about a story that comes out of our passage in Genesis today. But before I do, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I used to work before, when I was going through college, it was our Christian college, I used to work for Chick-fil-A. And I was a manager at Chick-fil-A. And one of the things they always told me as I was learning to be a better manager, and I was learning from the age of 15 onward what it's like to work inside this corporation, is they always said, if you want to go up, you have to replace yourself. I was like, what? What do you mean by that? Well, if you are a team member now and you want to become a team leader, you need to replace yourself. You need to teach people to do the things that you were doing and always replace yourself, because you won't be here forever. And we want the things that this corporation stands for to keep going through other people, so you need to replace yourself. Teach the people behind you to do what you are doing. And so when I went from team member to team leader, I replaced myself. I invited people to join the team and began to teach them to do the things I was taught to do. And then when I went from team leader to assistant manager, same thing. I raised up people to be team leaders to replace me and were taught to do the things I was taught to do. And so on and so forth. And what happens in Genesis chapter 25 is the death of Abraham. And when you're reading through this passage together, it can be very daunting and scary, right? Because Abraham was the one that God showed up to, that God promised an awesome covenant relationship to, and that through your offspring, the world will be blessed. And when Abraham dies, it can feel like the covenant and the things that Abraham believed and followed died with him. But we actually know, if we read the story, it doesn't. It doesn't stop with Abraham, and it's because Abraham had Isaac, and Abraham invested into Isaac everything he believed, everything about his life, everything, his relationships with his own wife. How does it look to have a marriage that brings honor to God? What does it look like to raise children? What does it look like to even have sheep and herds and flocks? And what does it look like to worship God and to trust him with everything? Abraham instilled that into Isaac, and because of that, when Abraham died, the promise didn't die. When Abraham died, the covenant didn't stop there, because Abraham knew that it was for generations to come, and so his job was to pour in to the next generation, to raise up people behind him, to trust in God. Did you know that if you follow Jesus, you're called to do the same thing? You and I are not going to live forever on this earth. One day we will pass away, and we'll get a new body, and we'll be in heaven with our God, worshiping him forever, serving him forever. But for Jesus to continue to make impacts on the next generation like he longs to call people to himself, this work of reconciliation, as the Apostle Paul talks about, it comes from you and I taking this mantle of replacing ourselves. So how does that look like? Well, it looks like this. If you're a brand new believer, you invite other people to be brand new believers with you. You reach out to your family about the new faith you have in Jesus. If you've been a believer for a long time, you start investing yourself into new believers. Do you have your life together perfectly? No. Will you ever? No. And if you wait till you do, you'll never have it together, and you'll never pour into people. But what you have, you should instill into others around you. As you learn to read the Bible, invite others to read the Bible with you. As you learn to worship God at church, invite others to worship God at church with you. Be an inviter to the lifestyle and the faith that you have. Instill into the next generation of believers what you've already learned. And maybe you're serving in kids ministries or digital teams or worship teams. What that looks like is inviting other people to serve with you and helping them discover the giftings that they have in God and instilling God's love and passion into the next generation. You and I, as followers of Jesus, are called to replace ourselves. The Bible calls it multiplication, spiritually speaking. Spiritual multiplication. We are called to do that. So my challenge to you today as you read through this passage is I want you to take some moments to pray about and to think about with Jesus. Who are you investing in? Who are you inviting to learn to have a faith in Jesus, to come into Jesus' presence? Who are you walking alongside with to thrive in the family of God together? Because you and I are not made to do life alone. We're made to thrive in the family of believers together. We need people in our life. Who can you be in the life of? And then who can you go on mission? Invite others to go with you to help other people join the family of God and learn to love Jesus like Jesus loves them. Spend time today discovering that. And if you get to the end of the day and you're like, man, I can't think of anybody, we would love to help you. Again, not perfect. None of us are. But we want to be better in this all the time as we are learning to be followers of Jesus who take next steps in following him. So we can glorify God by being disciples, those who love and obey Jesus by making more, multiplying ourselves into the next generation. The mission doesn't stop with you and me. It's to be poured into other people. Church, until we see each other again, you are sent.